Howdy, folks. Moving to a new country can be both exciting but also a little bit overwhelming. And one of the first things you need to do when moving to a new country, obviously, is to open a bank account. I mean, that goes without saying. A bank account is important for your employer to pay your salary in. It's important if you want to do any transactions. You need to get a credit card. And yes, you can use your credit cards or your bank accounts from your previous country when you move to Canada, but it's going to cost you because those conversion fees, it's not cheap. It's definitely not cheap. So in this video, we are going to look at how to pick the best bank for you and some of the things you need to consider while deciding on which bank would be best for you. There are 5 big banks in Canada that pretty much dominate the banking landscape. They are Scotiabank, TD Canada Trust, CIBC or Canada Imperial Bank of Commerce, Royal Bank of Canada or RBC, and then Bank of Montreal or BMO. Now, you'll probably end up at one of those 5 big banks because they're the ones that normally have big specials for new immigrants. But it's not a guarantee. There are a couple of other banks. There's a range of new banks starting up now, which are like online-only banks and things like that with really cool deals. And then, of course, you've got National Bank of Canada, which I guess is the 6th largest bank, but it's also won Bank of the Year a couple of times. So there are a lot of options, and really what you need to do is you need to think about what your needs are, both financially and geographically. The 5 big banks, they've got branches everywhere, but you need to go and have a look at which bank has the best branch in your area. There's some bigger branches, some smaller branches. When we moved to Vancouver first, we were in Caulfield, and we went to the BMO branch in Caulfield because it was really close to us, but it was a very tiny branch, and they weren't open on Mondays, and they had like very different banking hours just because, I don't know, it's different. Back home, all the banks work on exactly the same hours. Over here, they didn't. BMO didn't work on the same hours, the tiny branch, as the rest. And we actually migrated most of our banking down to the big RBC branch in West Vancouver because it's close to us. There's a big branch and they've got great service. Generally, the smaller branches, you have a little bit more personal service, I guess, and more connection with your bankers. But sometimes it takes a little longer to wait because they only have one teller, and I prefer the bigger branches because the service is great, it's quicker, and they also have a wider knowledge in the branch. If you ask for something, there's generally somebody there that knows how it works and that can help you out. For the rest, when it comes to picking the best bank, you do need to have a look around and see what specials are on. They always have specials going. There's not a lot of difference between the 5 big ones and the services that they offer, but some of them do specialize in certain things a little bit more, I guess. But anyway, before we go there, let's first look at deals. They often have deals for new immigrants, and it's best to have a look when you arrive. Go onto all their websites and check what they have on offer. When we arrived, RBC had a special where they were giving any new immigrants $300 free when you open an account with them. That seems to be something that goes around quite often, the $300 free. Sometimes what they do is they offer you 2 years without bank fees, because in Canada, all the banks do bank fees. You have account fees and things like that, and they would give that to you free of charge for 2 years. Or I've even seen things like you can get like free, I don't know, toasters and stuff. Well, I suppose. So yeah, just go and have a look at what deals the banks have on offer before you make your decision, and pick the best one from there. Then, as far as one other thing that you could consider, one of the banks that I didn't mention out here, which is HSBC. They're not one of the 5 biggest ones, and they've got branches in some of the major cities, or in most of the major cities. And a lot of people prefer using HSBC because they are an international bank and they've got branches everywhere. And What that means is that it's really easy to transfer stuff. If you have an HSBC account in Europe or in Africa or somewhere else in the US, it makes it really easy to transfer money between your accounts from overseas and local if you go with HSBC. So that's a consideration. But, we didn't go for that. We went with RBC. We enjoy RBC. It's a really good bank. Most of the banks have apps that you can download. We had a bit of a struggle with our BMO app because the fact was that we had an American iTunes account and you cannot download the BMO app on the American iTunes account. You can only download it from the Canadian iTunes account. So that means you need to switch over your iTunes if you want to get the BMO app, which was a little bit of a pain in the ass because we were quite happy to just carry on with our American Apple account. You have access to more movies and, different things from there. So let's look at some of the questions you should ask and some of the things that you should research before deciding on a new bank. Number one, obviously, do they have an app and do you have access? Can you get that app? Because, it just makes life so much easier to interact with your banking on your phone through an app, obviously. Number two, make sure that they have a branch close to you or that you have a branch that you can access if you need to. Number three, make sure that they will give you a credit card as a new immigrant, because remember, oftentimes when you arrive as a new immigrant in a country, you don't have a credit record, and often the banks won't give you a credit card. So what you would need to do is you would need to sign up for a prepaid credit card, or what a lot of the banks do for newcomers is they will give you a credit card, but you have to put a fixed deposit in the amount of the credit card as surety for the credit card. And it's essential that you do that because you need to start building up your own credit record in country. Number four, make sure that your debit card that you get from them is a Visa or MasterCard debit card so that you can do online purchases with it. Because in Canada, they use the Interact system for the debit card system. And we arrived here, we had these debit cards. Now you get a credit card, but we didn't want to always transact on our credit cards online. So we just wanted to make a purchase through our debit card. And an Interact debit card does not have all the requirements to do online transactions. It doesn't have the little security code at the back, and it doesn't have an expiry date. So we had to go back to the bank and go and get Visa debit cards from them in order to do online transactions. Number five, if you're planning on doing your grocery purchases or purchases at Costco with your credit card, make sure you get a MasterCard credit card because Costco doesn't accept Visa credit cards. Number six, if you have kids, make sure that the bank has kids accounts. A lot of the banks over here do kids accounts that have no service fees up till age 23 or something. And that's got a couple of other special perks. So make sure that they have kids accounts and that your kids accounts can be linked to your accounts. Number seven, sticking with kids. If you are okay with your kids doing online purchases on their own accounts and their own cards, just bear in mind that some of the banks have a age limit on that Visa debit card that they can be issued. Like we are at RBC, for instance, and our kids could not get issued Visa online debit cards until they turned 15 for some reason. I've got no idea what that is all about, but just make sure that if you want your kids to be able to do online purchases, make sure what age they can access the Visa debit cards from. Number eight is a fairly obvious one, and that is looking at the fee structure of the bank that you're considering. The bank's fee structures are super complex and everyone is very different. So what you need to do is you need to look at your own financial needs and the transactions that you will oftentimes or that you will mostly be doing and focus in on those fees. For example, some of the banks charge like $50 for an international money transfer, and some of the banks do it for free. So if you are planning on doing, or if you're foreseeing that you will be doing a lot of international money transfers, it's obviously better to go to a bank that has no charge on that. But if you're not going to be doing that, maybe you want to look at some of the other fees. Number 9, sticking with fees. Do you need to maintain a minimum balance in your account in order to pay no fees, or to have the lesser fees that you've been offered? That's another thing that some of the banks do. They look at your account and they go, hey, you will have 0 fees as long as you maintain a minimum balance of $4,000 in your account. And that's just silly. I mean, why would you want to like stick money in your account if it's non-interest bearing just in order to save fees? So do have a look at that as well. They do try that sometimes. And number 10, how do their bill payments or payments to other people work? In Canada, we make use of the Interact system to do money transfers to other people. And it's a really simple system where you just pay money to their email addresses or their cell phone numbers, and they can deposit it directly. But the unfortunate reality is that Interact has limits. There's no way you can transact more than $3,000 a day on Interact. So if you need to pay your rent of $4,000 or $4,500, you cannot do an electronic funds transfer through Interact. Now, some of the banks like RBC has systems where you can pay other RBC clients directly, which is quite handy. You know, if you want to pay your landlord, it's a straightforward electronic funds transfer, or ACH as they call it in America. So have a look at what systems they have available, because it does make a difference. You know, with BMO, it's very hard if you want to pay somebody else that's not already on their system. Now, I'm not talking about places like Canada Revenue Agency or those. Everybody has got those listed on their systems and you can pay them directly. I'm just talking about you want to pay some other person or other business, and it's more than $3,000. You don't want to break it down on Interact. You just want to make a once-off payment. Just look at it and figure out how it works. I like RBC for that reason, because they have a system where I can load somebody's bank details and pay them, which is great. Which, you know, coming from South Africa, that's the only way it works. It's really easy. You want to pay somebody, you load their banking details, submit it, and you pay them. It's not rocket science. Apparently here it's not that simple. Anyway, so those are the 10 questions I would ask, or the 10 aspects I would look at before opening another bank account over here. I hope this video helped you, and if you have any other ideas or suggestions or things that I forgot about or left out, please drop them in the comments below so that we can help everybody to get the best information and open the perfect bank account for themselves. And if you are interested in how the Canadian banking system works and learn some more of the terms that they use, just check out this video over here. Cheers.